She dropped her sunglasses. That's how hard it hit her. One moment, she was adjusting the strap on her beach tote and making some half-hearted joke to the guy beside her. Tyler, was it? Trevor? And the next, the blood drained from her face like someone yanked a plug out of the back of her neck. You'd think she'd seen a ghost. But no. Worse. She saw someone who was supposed to stay broken. I wasn't facing her at first. Carla and I had been mid-conversation, something about that awful shrimp cocktail we tried at the hotel last night. She laughed, really laughed, the kind that folds her body inward a little, soft and private. She touched my arm. I must have said something funny without realizing it. Or maybe she just liked how I said it. That still surprises me sometimes. I looked up and saw Claire about the same time Carla did. Claire hadn't moved. Her whole body had stiffened in that subtle, specific way you only notice in someone you used to know intimately. It's the kind of freeze you can feel before you see, the way she clutched the edge of her towel tighter without realizing it, the way her jaw slid slightly sideways, trying not to drop open. She blinked twice, then again, and then finally she looked at Carla. That's when it happened. That flash of recognition, followed by something almost cruel in its speed, complete collapse. Not physically. Claire didn't faint or scream. She just broke. Something folded inward in her expression like a letter being sealed in slow motion. The guy next to her, shirtless, lean, scrolling through his phone like the beach was a backdrop for his Instagram feed, didn't even notice. He kept tapping the screen. She didn't say a word to him, didn't even nudge him, because in that moment, he didn't exist. Neither did the beach or the breeze or anything else. She was looking at me like I wasn't supposed to be standing anymore, and certainly not with her. Carla. I turned back to Carla and smiled. She glanced at Claire, gave the tiniest nod of acknowledgement, a civil, disarming little tilt of the head, and then turned her attention back to me. No smirk, no passive aggression, just the grace of someone who didn't need to perform. I thought I was ready for this moment. Truth is, I didn't even plan it. It just happened. I'd come to this stretch of beach for years, long before Claire ever suggested making it our place. I knew every warped board on the boardwalk, every stubborn little dune that never fully held its shape. The plan was to just enjoy the quiet with Carla for a weekend. Read, walk, breathe. But Claire? She showed up like a badly written scene that forgot it wasn't the climax anymore. I didn't owe her a thing. But I'll admit, seeing her reaction sent something cold and satisfying through my spine, the kind of chill you feel not out of cruelty, but clarity. 3 years ago, I sat on this same beach with Claire. Only back then, she was silent in that loaded way, the kind of silence that isn't peace but preparation. I asked her if she wanted to walk. She shook her head. I asked her what was wrong. She said nothing, just tired. She lied so easily I almost believed her. Almost. That was the summer everything turned. I just didn't know it yet. By the way, if you're still reading this and you're part of that 97% who listen without subscribing, maybe consider it. It's small, but it pushes the people behind this to keep telling the ones worth telling. And this one's far from over. Claire moved, finally. One step, then another. I didn't stare. I didn't turn away either. I let her catch me mid-laugh. Not the forced kind, the real kind. She needed to see that. What made her buckle wasn't the fact that I was smiling. It was who I was smiling with. The last person on earth she thought I'd end up beside. Claire always believed I was too passive, too stuck in my own routines. She used to say I was fine with fine. And maybe I was, for a while. Until she decided fine wasn't enough for her anymore and packed up her drama in a wine-colored suitcase and disappeared with the kind of flourish only someone chasing validation can pull off. What she never understood is that some of us don't fall apart loudly. Some of us sit still, observe, collect, and when we return, we don't come back screaming. We come back different, unrecognizable, unshakable. Claire was still watching, like if she blinked too long, I might vanish again. But I wasn't going anywhere. I reached for Carla's hand. She didn't flinch, didn't look around to see who noticed. Her fingers just slid into mine, familiar, warm, present. Across the sand, Claire's eyes dropped. For the first time in years, She didn't look like someone in control of her story. She looked like someone who just realized someone else had been writing their own the whole time. She said it while stacking the plates. That's the part I still think about. Not in a bitter way, more like someone replaying a crime scene, trying to figure out when the gun was drawn. We'd just finished dinner. I'd made halibut, her favorite, or at least it used to be. I remember the way she dabbed the corner of her mouth with the napkin, like she was performing dinner instead of eating it. And then, as she stood to clear the dishes, she paused like a director yelling cut on a scene no one knew was acting. I need to tell you something. There was no tremble, no wet eyes, just that overly calm voice people use when they've already made a decision and want to sound like it's mutual. I waited. It's not about someone else, she said, like reading off a script she'd memorized on the drive home. I just feel dead here. I stared at her, then the halibut, then her again. And it was so oddly silent that I could hear the faucet dripping even though it hadn't been used in hours. Dead where? I asked. In this room? In this house? In this life, she snapped a little too quickly. Like she'd been holding that phrase in a cage for weeks and it finally got out. I nodded. That was it. No begging, no accusations. I just nodded. She waited for a scene, maybe even wanted one. She stood there like someone who'd rehearsed her lines but had no one to act against. When the drama didn't come, she sighed and retreated into the kitchen. A week later, I found a box of her stuff missing. A pair of shoes, a perfume bottle, a gray cashmere hoodie she used to steal from my side of the closet. 2 days after that, her social media lit up like a PR campaign. Selfies with new friends I'd never seen before. Yoga mat selfies with vague captions. Growth is messy but necessary. And choosing me. Then the beach posts began. She never tagged locations before. Now, suddenly every photo had coordinates. Some were coastal, her toes in the sand, a cocktail glass with a lime wedge and a well-positioned book cover beside it. Always the same filter, muted sun glow, like she was living in an Instagram memory of a life she never actually had. But the one that hit hardest was a shot of her walking away from the camera down a pier, hair loose, arms out, caption, new chapter. That was the same pier we walked when we first came to that beach town, the one where I told her I wanted to build something real with her. She'd kissed me on the cheek and said, "Then don't let me drift." I guess I did, or maybe she jumped. I didn't comment, didn't block her. I just stopped looking. Completely. I removed the apps, buried the photos, erased the shared grocery list on our phones. It was a strange kind of surgery, slow and bloodless. You expect these things to hurt like screaming, but they don't. They hurt like silence, like setting the table for two out of habit, then quietly putting the second plate back in the cupboard. She didn't text, not to check in, not to say sorry, not even to fight. It was almost like I'd been an extra in her origin story, just there for exposition, disposable. And when the plot no longer needed me, I was edited out without even a credits roll. People asked questions, of course. My sister, a couple coworkers, one old friend from college who'd met her twice and still remembered how she used to twist her ring when she lied. I told them we were figuring things out, then taking space, then finally she's doing her own thing now, which is code for I've been replaced by yoga, cocktails, and validation disguised as empowerment. Still, I didn't fight. There's this myth that men have to rage to show they cared, smash things, cry in driveways, send desperate emails. But some of us know better. Some of us know that when someone walks out, you let the door close naturally. No slamming, no chasing. You just catalog, quietly, patiently. Because sometimes the best way to remember what happened isn't to relive it, it's to observe it, piece by piece, every stage photo, every fake quote, every mutual friend who suddenly stopped reaching out. It was all evidence, not of a crime, of a pattern. Claire thought I disappeared because I was weak. What she didn't see was the difference between disappearing and preparing. She didn't just rewrite the story, she mass distributed it. You'd think someone who claims to be healing would do it quietly, reflect, journal, maybe therapy if she was feeling generous. But Claire? No. Claire launched a rebrand. The first whisper came through a friend of a friend, someone I hadn't seen since our wedding. "Hey man," he messaged. "Just wanted to say, sorry things didn't work out. If it means anything, we all thought she treated you like a ghost at the end." I thanked him. That was the beginning. The second came a few days later. A forwarded screenshot. A group chat Claire had with two of her yoga buddies, one of whom apparently didn't buy her narrative and thought I deserved to know. The message read, "He just stopped trying. I was basically living with a stranger. I needed someone who made me feel seen, not managed. Managed like I was her accountant, like 12 years of supporting her through layoffs, anxiety spirals, that thing with her mom, were just corporate overhead." I didn't reply to the messenger, didn't ask for more, but I archived the image. Over the next few months, pieces kept showing up, half-willing accomplices. One guy I barely remembered from a company party sent me a link to a podcast. She'd been a guest, some low-rent empowerment show hosted by a woman who referred to herself as a survivor of traditional marriage. Claire had spoken in vague but cutting terms. Some people confuse stability with neglect. I just stopped mistaking silence for safety. It wasn't rage that hit me. It was the methodical way she scrubbed herself clean of any complicity. She was Mona Lisa'ing the past, smiling just enough to seem tragic, mysterious, wise. Her Instagram flooded with shots of sunsets and champagne glasses, a new guy's blurry jawline, and captions like, "Choosing joy is never selfish, and sometimes letting go is love too." It was performance, and it was working. Her circle grew, new faces, high-status single friends, brunches, photo shoots, a panel at a women's conference on personal reinvention. She even did a video tour of her conscious home where she talked about how she'd survived the slow erosion of passion and learned to reclaim her voice. Meanwhile, I didn't say a word. What she didn't realize was that not everyone had amnesia. Some people remembered how she'd shut down during arguments, how she once spent our vacation flirting with a resort bartender while I dealt with her dad's medical paperwork back at the room. Some remembered the time I showed up to her art exhibit in a suit after work, and she told her friends I was too Wall Street to fit in. More importantly, some people still respected me. Quietly. Completely. They sent things, text threads, voice memos. Photos from events she swore she hadn't attended. I didn't request a single one. They just arrived, piece by piece. A puzzle she thought she'd burned, slowly rebuilding itself in the dark. I didn't post, didn't counter-narrate. That's where she overplayed her hand, assuming silence meant defeat. But I was never trying to outshine her. I was outlasting her. Every lie she told made her feel lighter in the moment. I could see it in her eyes in the clips, the buzz of public sympathy, the dopamine hit of curated victimhood. But lies age badly. They sag, warp, they start to contradict themselves. And when they do, well, it helps to have a file. A big one, labeled, time-stamped, stored, not to blackmail, not to get even, just to remember what actually happened when everyone else starts applauding the performance. Claire thought she controlled the narrative. She forgot one thing. The internet forgets fast. But people? People don't. The first time Claire heard my name again, it was from someone she'd forgotten used to like me. They bumped into each other at an art opening downtown. Something minimalist, wine and cubes and linen blouses. She was there with her usual crew, the divorcee who collects scarves like trauma tokens, the startup guy she still hadn't officially broken up with, and one woman I'm pretty sure just attaches herself to rich women for sport. And then came Melissa. Melissa was never loud, never warm, but she was exact. She and I worked together once, briefly, back when Claire still called my job soul-draining. Melissa had always been polite to Claire, but that night she apparently approached her with a glass of wine and said, "You know, I saw Richard last week." Claire, according to a mutual friend who was at the table, gave one of her signature hums, that vague, semi-interested noise that means keep talking, but I'm already tired of this topic. Melissa didn't care. She kept going. He was speaking at the city restoration fundraiser. New position, I think. Big real estate project. Warehouse conversion down by the marina. Claire raised an eyebrow. Huh. Didn't know he was into public events now. He was great, Melissa said. Confident. Relaxed. Funny, actually. Funny. Claire always said I was functional funny. The kind that made people smirk in private, not laugh in public. But apparently, that had changed too. She shrugged it off that night. Good for him, she said aloud, according to the source. Some men bloom late, I guess. But then the photo dropped. It wasn't from Melissa. It came through an ex-colleague of mine that Claire still followed, someone she kept on her list just to see if I'd resurface. And resurface I did, in a slate gray suit, short beard trimmed, standing with a microphone in one hand and a slideshow clicker in the other. No ring, no fidgeting, no tie crooked, no middle-aged bloat or coffee stains, just composed. There was a woman in the photo too, not Carla, just a colleague, but the way we were positioned, her body tilted slightly toward mine, my smile mid-sentence, it looked like something confident, something not waiting for anyone's approval. Claire zoomed in, screenshot, zoomed again. She texted no one about it, just stared at the photo on and off like checking a scratch on a car she didn't own anymore. The next day, the rumors picked up. Richard just closed on a second place near the coast. Didn't he flip that duplex last quarter? Heard he did well. I think he's seen someone classy, quiet type. She pretended not to hear any of it. When her friends brought it up, she waved it off. It's all branding, she said once, swirling a $16 mocktail. Some men need to overcorrect after rejection. It's compensation. But later that week, her Google search history would have told a different story. My name, my company, the event page for the fundraiser, a video clip. She watched the clip at least twice. I know this because the view count from her account triggered a notification. One of those analytics quirks from a shared marketing platform we both forgot was still connected. I didn't say a word, didn't text, didn't gloat, but I noticed. And so did she. That first sighting didn't shatter her illusions. Not yet, but it introduced a crack. Thin hairline, almost invisible. The kind that starts near the edge of a mirror, then slowly begins to spread. Claire always prided herself on being unforgettable. She had that magnetic pull some women cultivate, the posture of elegance with a twist of danger, like a cocktail you're warned about but order anyway. She made impressions, owned rooms, liked being remembered, and she assumed others faded by comparison. Carla was one of those she never bothered to remember. She used to call her the shadow. Not to her face, of course. Claire had tact when it served her, but whenever Carla showed up to family gatherings, quiet, modest, always helping with dishes or watching from the edges, Claire would lean in and whisper things like, "If I ever fade into beige like that, just shoot me," or, "God, even her perfume smells like compromise." She never noticed how Carla listened more than she spoke, how she tracked conversations, how she never once corrected anyone, but also never let herself be dismissed. Carla had been married to my brother, Mark, a good man, reliable, dry-witted, sick for the last 7 years of his life. Claire thought we were close because we looked alike. We weren't, but his death was quiet and deeply unfair, and when the memorial came, it was Carla who made the coffee, wrote the thank you cards, and stood in the back while everyone gave long, hollow speeches. Claire didn't attend. She sent flowers. Anemones, I remember because Carla quietly handed them to a nurse the next day and said, "They trigger my migraines." I didn't see Carla again for almost a year. We reconnected by accident, if you believe in that kind of thing. I don't. I think the people who are meant to witness your rebuild always find their way back in. It was a service project for the old rec center. She was signing people in at a clipboard. I was late. She didn't blink when she saw me, just smiled like I'd been expected. We didn't talk about Claire at first. We didn't talk much at all. We just kept showing up to the same things. Book drives, cleanups, quiet coffees after. It was the opposite of a spark. No heat, no chaos. Just a slow, steady draw towards something that felt like rest. Claire would have hated it because Carla wasn't a performance. She was proof. Proof that someone could know every fractured part of me, including the wreckage Claire left, and not flinch, not try to polish it, not rush to narrate it, just sit with it. The first time Carla brought up Claire, we were in line at a hardware store. She picked up a paintbrush and said, "You used to come here with her, right?" I nodded. She didn't like the smell of wood glue, said it made her nauseous. I raised an eyebrow. "That true?" Carla shrugged. She said a lot of things. She knew, not just the public version, the real one. The dinners where Claire rolled her eyes mid-sentence. The weekend trips where she flirted with bartenders while I carried luggage. The long silences she used as weapons disguised as fatigue. And still, Carla stayed, not because she pitied me, because she saw me. Without the filters, without the story Claire had spread like cologne. Dull man, tired marriage, no passion. Claire painted herself as the lead in a romantic tragedy. But Carla? Carla knew the backstage lighting, the missed cues, the unscripted cruelty. That's what made it worse for Claire. Not just that I'd moved on. Not just that the woman beside me was someone she had once mocked from across the room while sipping a Chardonnay, but that this woman knew everything and chose me anyway. Claire had spent years trying to build a version of herself that looked right in reflections. Curated, desired, free, and suddenly, standing across the beach, she was staring at someone who knew her original draft, the one with the crossed out lines and half-baked character, and that woman wasn't just still here, she was holding my hand. Claire always feared being replaced by someone younger, more vibrant, more marketable. She never imagined being replaced by someone real, and worse, someone who remembered. She called Marissa the second she got back to the hotel, her face still tight from the beach, her hands shaking just enough that she spilled a bit of cucumber water trying to open the minibar. Tyler, or Trevor, whatever his name was in the shower, oblivious, probably planning some half-baked reel about ocean mindfulness. She shut the balcony door, phone already dialing. "Tell me you're sitting down," she hissed into the line. Marissa answered on speaker, the clink of dishes in the background. Probably her rooftop brunch ritual complete with overpriced mimosas and rented aesthetics. Claire didn't care. "I just saw Richard," she said, "at our beach, with Carla." Silence. Just the faint sound of a fork scraping against a plate. Claire pressed. "Did you know?" Marissa didn't sigh, didn't flinch. She just said it flatly, like she was reporting the weather. "I introduced them." Claire actually gasped. An audible, sharp intake of breath, like someone had just thrown cold water on her spine. "You what?" "I introduced them," Marissa repeated, slower this time. "Last year, they bumped into each other at that charity drive. Remember the one I invited you to and you bailed because it was too suburban?" Claire didn't answer. Marissa continued. "I'd seen him a few times by then. He looked better, not revenge body better, just peaceful. And Carla, she wasn't doing well after Mark. I thought they'd talk. I didn't expect it to stick. You knew what she was to me." "I knew what you said she was," Marissa corrected. Claire's voice dropped. "You used to call her oatmeal and heels. I also used to think you were honest." That one landed. Marissa's tone wasn't angry, just tired, like someone pulling off a mask they'd worn too long. "You lied to all of us, Claire. We believed you. Until we didn't." Claire tried to recover. "I didn't lie. Things just got complicated. You weren't in the relationship. You didn't know how dead it had become." Marissa was quiet again. Then carefully, "Did it die, Claire? Or did you kill it because he wasn't the mirror you needed anymore?" "I loved him," Claire snapped. "No, you loved being loved by him, until it stopped making you feel superior. It was like being cut open with a butter knife. Slow, dull, agonizing in its accuracy. You don't understand. He wasn't present. He was quiet. He'd retreat into work. He didn't even look at me sometimes. And you thought that gave you permission to light a match and walk out." Claire's hands tightened around the phone. "You're supposed to be my friend." "I was. For years. I covered for you. Defended you. Even when you started posting that fake liberated woman crap on Instagram while quietly texting me that your new guy was boring and had no emotional range." Claire's breath hitched. "You said that would stay between us." "It did. But now you're calling me, shocked that the man you dismantled found peace without you, and you want me to what? Validate your panic?" Claire went quiet. Marissa let the silence stretch, then said, softer but final, "You don't need a friend right now, Claire. You need a mirror, and I'm not holding it for you anymore." Click. Claire stood there, staring at the wall. The air conditioner hummed behind her. The distant sound of waves outside was suddenly obnoxious. Too carefree, too indifferent. She looked around the hotel room, designer pillows, essential oil diffuser, 2 untouched glasses of wine, and felt a swell of something she hadn't allowed in years. Aloneness. Not solitude. Not empowerment. The raw, graceless kind. The one that seeps in when the narrative you built starts collapsing behind you, and you realize you were the only one still rehearsing your lines. She scrolled through her contacts. Half the names were people who still commented under her filtered photos but hadn't called in over a year. The other half? Muted, blocked, gone. For the first time since she left, Claire wasn't just watching Richard live. She was realizing he hadn't just moved on. He'd built something she could never touch, a life that didn't require defending him or explaining him, a life with witnesses who chose to stay in the room. And one of those witnesses had just closed the door in her face. It started as a Medium post. That's the part that really pissed her off. Not a podcast, not a documentary, not a tabloid expose, just one of those I found healing through honesty pieces that quietly float through timelines on Sunday nights and catch fire before Monday lunch breaks. The author was Alex, gender-neutral name, 30-something and once a semi-regular face in our friend group. Creative, soft-spoken, the kind of person Claire always underestimated. She used to call them tart people, useful when the weather changes, but otherwise forgettable. Turns out, Alex didn't forget anything. The post was titled, "When They Rewrite the Ending, Notes on Silent Strength After Loud Betrayals." It opened with a soft anecdote watching two people at a fundraiser, a man who once used to fold himself inward, now speaking calmly on a stage, and a woman who, years ago, had turned their relationship into a slow bleed. Claire didn't even see it first. Someone DM'd it to her. No comment. Just a link and a fire emoji. She clicked out of curiosity. She exited the tab in less than a minute, then reopened it 30 seconds later. What she read, what the whole city read, wasn't a rage piece. It was almost too polite. That's what made it cut deeper. Alex never named her. But they didn't have to. They described the dinners, how the man would always pull the chair out for her, and how she'd correct his stories mid-sentence like polishing glass that didn't need it. They referenced a specific gallery opening where she'd disappeared for 20 minutes to network with a sculptor she later claimed not to remember. They quoted things she thought were said in passing. "He's a good man, just not a whole man, and I want fire, not furniture." The story unfolded like a slow photograph developing in red light. Then came the screenshots. Not posted directly, just paraphrase. "She once told me in confidence that she needed a bigger life, that he made her feel like she was drowning in beige, but what I saw was a man who gave her everything, and a woman who wanted credit for setting fire to it." Timeline details matched perfectly. The beach photos, the sudden glow up, the fake narrative of empowerment built on passive cruelty, and the comments. They were brutal. "Wow, I think I know who this is. Never bought the Liberated Queen act. I worked with her once. Always thought she treated people like supporting actors. She threw him away and expected applause for it. No wonder he looks better now." She tried to report it. Medium didn't take it down. She messaged Alex directly. "This is libel and you know it." They replied, "It's memoir and it's true." Claire called her lawyer. He skimmed it and sighed. "There are no names, no photos, no false claims. Nothing actionable. It's clearly me." "Claire, the legal system doesn't protect people from recognition, just from defamation. And unfortunately for you, this reads like reality." She slammed her phone down and cried. Not because it hurt, but because it unmasked. Her curated feed, quotes about rebirth, reels of morning meditations, cropped photos of beach sunsets, and handwritten notes like, "Today I choose grace." They all looked grotesque in contrast now, like drag makeup under a police flashlight. No one jumped to her defense, not even the ones she thought would. Her DMs were silent. A few polite likes disappeared overnight. A brand partnership she was in talks with ghosted her completely. Suddenly she wasn't the brave phoenix rising from domestic mediocrity. She was just a woman who told a better story than she lived. And the worst part, the man she built her fiction on hadn't said a single word, but he didn't need to, because someone else finally had. It was supposed to be a reset weekend. That's what she called it when she booked the overpriced eco-luxury rental near the dunes. She told herself it was for clarity, for detachment, a chance to unplug and float for a bit. In reality, she was running. The Medium post was still circulating. The silence from her inner circle was deafening. Marissa hadn't texted back in over 2 weeks. The startup boyfriend, Brian, was sweet enough, toned, performed the right gestures, but she could feel his shallowness every time he reached for his phone mid-conversation. She needed distance. She needed to feel above the fray. The listing promised serenity, ocean breeze, and soul recalibration. She didn't expect him. It was the second day. They'd finished brunch, avocado toast, blood orange juice, something called a grounding bowl. She wore her linen wrap, designer sunglasses, the straw hat she bought impulsively in Palm Springs. Her boyfriend trailed a few feet behind, head down in his phone, probably trying to reschedule some meetings she already told him to cancel. She crested the hill leading to the beach and saw them. Richard, Carla, a towel between them, a shared thermos, laughter that came too easy, too real. He was leaning back on one arm, face turned toward the sun. She was reading something, probably a novel, the kind Claire always told herself she'd get to when things slowed down. And then Carla reached out absently and brushed a grain of sand from his collarbone. It wasn't sexual, it was worse. It was casual, intimate in the kind of way that didn't ask for attention, like they'd done it 1,000 times and would do it again tomorrow. Claire stopped walking. Her stomach flipped, heat prickling under her skin despite the breeze. Her boyfriend didn't notice, he just kept scrolling. Then Carla looked up, their eyes locked. Claire expected a blink, a flinch, something, but Carla's expression didn't change. She marked her page with the shell, closed the book, and gave the softest, most devastating smile Claire had ever received. Hi, Claire. That was it. No venom, no mocking, just calm civility, like running into a former co-worker at a farmer's market. Richard looked over, finally. He didn't stand, didn't wave, just nodded, brief, polite, empty. Claire's mouth opened before her brain caught up. Hey, she managed, voice too high, too airy. Didn't know you came out here. Carla glanced at Richard. He said nothing, just reached for the thermos, poured a bit more into her cup. She took it, sipped, leaned against his shoulder slightly. We come often, Carla said, eyes not leaving hers. Claire stood there like someone who'd wandered onto the wrong movie set. Her boyfriend finally caught up, looked up briefly. Friends of yours? She didn't answer. Because how do you explain a war that's already ended? She could have walked closer, could have tried to make small talk, dropped a fake laugh, maybe sat down and overperformed her current happiness. But the whole tableau made it clear there was no script for her here. She wasn't a ghost in his life. She was a non-event. That realization settled in her like a stone in the gut. Richard looked past her toward the waves. Carla resumed her book. They didn't watch her leave. Claire turned and walked back toward the dunes. Her boyfriend followed, glancing back once, confused. You okay? Yeah, she said, sunglasses sliding down slightly. Just forgot how bright it is out here. But the truth was, for the first time, she felt invisible in a place she once owned. And worse, no one even noticed. That night, the waves outside the rental tapped against the shoreline like a metronome mocking her silence. She sat on the edge of the bed, knees pulled to her chest, robe open just enough to let the sea air in and the dignity out. Her boyfriend had passed out 2 hours ago, one hand still holding his phone on his chest, half scrolling through notifications, the other twitching occasionally like he was chasing something even in sleep. Claire stared at the screen in her hand. The message box blinked. She'd rewritten the first sentence 6 times. What do you even say to a man who no longer carries your name in his mouth? She started soft, always soft. I never wanted it to be like this. She paused, reread it, too vague. She added, I miss who we were. It felt safe, safe enough to admit without risking anything. A nostalgia-colored olive branch. She hovered over send for a full minute, then tapped. The delivered tag mocked her, then a reply. Just 2 lines. I don't, but thank you. That was it. No period after thank you, no warmth, no ellipsis to imply hesitation, just a fact followed by a formality. She reread it 3 times. The heat rose in her throat, not anger, not yet, but that dull panic you get when you realize the door you just walked through no longer opens from the other side. She stared at the keyboard again. Typed. Do you still think of me? No overthinking this time, just send, message delivered, and then nothing. 10 minutes, 30, an hour. She refreshed, checked her Wi-Fi, opened another app, came back, still nothing. At 2:19 a.m., she watched the status change from delivered to seen. Her stomach dropped, but still, no reply. He saw it, chose silence. Claire hadn't expected a declaration. She wasn't delusional, but she'd expected something. A crack, a signal that she still lingered somewhere in the crawl space of his heart. that the history they'd built, the trips, the late-night talks, the birthdays, the sicknesses, the moments, meant something beyond data stored on an old hard drive. Instead, she got absence, not rejection, just deletion. It was worse than rage, rage you can feed off of, twist into validation. But this was starvation, the kind that proves you're not even a thought worth finishing. She locked her phone and laid down beside her sleeping boyfriend. His breathing was loud, his mouth half open. She watched him for a moment, counted the freckles on his shoulder. None of it felt like home, just staging, rental love in a rented room. In the quiet, her thoughts betrayed her. She remembered the time Richard found her crying in the bathroom after her father's second stroke, the way he didn't say anything. Just sat on the floor with her for an hour, tracing circles on her back until her sobs dissolved into something quieter. She remembered the time he brought home 3 different kinds of tea when she had strep, because he didn't know which one wouldn't make her gag, but wanted her to feel like she had options. She remembered the night they danced in the kitchen barefoot to a song neither of them liked, just because the silence between the lyrics felt better than the quiet of their fights. And then she remembered walking out, telling herself she was choosing joy, that she was chasing aliveness. What she'd actually done was abandon someone who didn't know how to brand his pain, and now that man had rewritten himself without her. Claire turned her face into the pillow to muffle the sound rising in her throat. It wasn't a sob. It was smaller, a kind of grief that didn't ask for attention. Outside, the tide rolled in, indifferent, steady, like him. The sand was colder than she remembered. Claire stood just beyond the edge of the path where the planks of the boardwalk gave way to grit and time. The sun was melting into the water, bruised orange, soft violet, that perfect filter nature gave sunsets when it wanted people to believe in closure. She hadn't planned to see them again. Not tonight, not after that night, but she couldn't stay in the room. Not with him snoring beside her like a man entirely unaware he was the third choice in a story she'd told herself was still hers to write. So she walked, no destination, no plan. She told herself she needed air, needed movement, needed to put the phone down and stop refreshing a screen that wasn't going to change. And then, just as the sky slipped into that hour when people stopped taking pictures and start reaching for their towels, she saw them. Richard and Carla. They were walking slow, leisurely, no rush to get anywhere. Their silhouettes cast long and close, arms brushing, no hand-holding, no performance, just contact. Claire stopped mid-step. The wind blew strands of hair across her face, but she didn't move them. She didn't blink. She just watched. They paused near the dunes where the sea oats bowed and the gulls made less noise. Carla leaned her head slightly toward him, spoke softly. Claire couldn't hear the words, but she saw the way his shoulder dipped toward her, like gravity had finally found its center again. Carla turned her head, saw her. It was the second time they'd locked eyes, but this time Carla didn't smile. She simply turned back to Richard, touched his arm lightly, and said something Claire could finally hear. Ready to head back? Richard glanced toward her once, just once. Their eyes met. His face didn't change. Not cruel, not smug, just composed. Like a man reading the last page of a book he didn't need to reread. He gave a small nod, a half smile, the kind you give a stranger who holds the door for you out of habit. Then he turned. And walked, not fast, not with purpose, just away. Claire opened her mouth, tried to say something she didn't even know what, an apology, a memory, a plea. Nothing came. Her throat tightened around the silence like it knew better. She looked down. She was holding her sandals, had been for almost 20 minutes, hadn't put them on once. The tide was rising. The water grazed her toes, icy, indifferent. Behind her, a couple laughed. A child screamed joyfully. Life continued. Ahead of her, Richard's shape got smaller, but not blurred, not faded, clear, precise, gone. She stayed there until the sun slipped fully behind the horizon, her figure cast in shadow, her feet wet, her hands full of things she didn't need, couldn't wear, and no longer remembered why she'd carried. There was no final confrontation, no scene, no redemption arc, just her, and the proof that some endings don't come with thunder, they come with the sound of footsteps, calmly walking away.